Good morning. Extra credit points to all of you who are here in the building. For those of you who are watching from a distance this morning, I don't know, it's 31 below wind chill when I woke up this morning. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. It took a little extra effort to make it here. And before I talk about what I'm going to talk about today, for those of you who just got through doing 40 minutes of Zazen, that might be those of you at home, but it certainly applies to most of us in the room. I'm just curious how you did. This is a rhetorical question. You do not need to answer out loud. How'd you do? The reason I'm asking that question is because it allows us to sort of see what comes up in us as a metric for success or failure. It might give us a little insight into how we evaluate, how we judge, how we rank, what we do on the cushion. Not to judge it, but just to see it. It's pretty typical for human beings to evaluate either the experience that they're having currently or the experience they just had. And so if you find yourself saying, oh yeah, that was a good sitting, good. But how come? Like, why was that your review? Just to sort of see. How you do that. Does that make sense? Or if you said, oh, that was it's a terrible sitting. Oh, okay. How come? My thoughts started off really quiet and they got busy. Oh, that was your metric. Thought frequency. Okay. I felt sad at the beginning, but I felt peaceful at the end. Oh, the presence of more pleasurable feelings was your metric. Or maybe it started off feeling pretty good, and then by the end you were sad. Oh, so maybe that's a bad sitting. Or maybe it's a good sitting because you didn't know you were sad, but by the end it showed up. It trusted you enough as a witness that it showed itself, and you got a chance to know that. I don't know. Maybe your body felt tense at the beginning and felt relaxed at the end. Maybe vice versa. Maybe at the beginning you were thinking about the football game coming up here in a couple hours. And maybe by the end you were thinking about the Dharma. Oh, that was a good sitting. My thoughts were much loftier. So this is just a hypothetical, but it's a cool thing to ask yourself. It's a very cool thing to ask yourself. At the end of my sitting, I evaluate it, whether I know it or not. I evaluate that sitting. On a scale of 1 to 10, that was like a 6.5. Okay, cool. I'm not bringing that to your awareness to try to get you to stop doing that. But I do think it's interesting that we do that as humans. And I do think part of the invitation of what happens in this room is to come to know why we do that thing. And if there are 50 people in this room, there are 50 different ways of evaluating what just happened. And your good is going to be my mediocre, it's going to be her awesome, it's going to be his crappy. Because we're all using different things. And so it's just good to see it, like, oh, that ego function shows up and it does that. And the reason it's good to see it from a Zen point of view is because subconsciously, that's steering the entire time. That's the only reason you want to see it. Not because it's bad that ego functioning is present. Of course it's present. But unconsciously, it's steering the whole time. And so if I'm aware of that, if you are aware of that, then you go, oh, I see what's happening. I noticed how I steered myself away from that type of thinking or that emotion body, or I noticed how do you see what I'm saying here? And even like, oh, that was a good sitting, unconsciously, the next time we go back to the cushions, like, oh, we get that back again. Maybe I'll do that same thing again. Again, no problem. We're not pointing out a pathology here. We're just really wanting to notice. This is how humans evaluate their experience. And I don't know about you guys, but when I sit down, a human shows up every time to meet me. And part of my job as Buddha nature is just to get to know that. Like, oh, look at him there, he's showing up. Look at all the words that are used to describe that experience. And look at the limitations of all those words and all those labels. And, oh, I see what's happening there. Oh, yeah. And then the awareness starts to move down into the heart. You start going, every one of those little twists and turns is going to be in some way in relation to suffering. Oh, that's what's going on. Right? Something you've been hurt by in the past, you're going to try to subtly move away from. Something that worked in the past, try to subtly move toward. Yeah, I understand why he does that. Oh, yeah, of course. But as the great witness, you then get to make the decision from much more awareness. Is that a metric you still want to use? Do you still want to judge the sitting at the end and go, it was good because I feel emotionally more content at the end? Perhaps you do, perhaps not. It was bad because I had thoughts. Do I still want to use that metric? Maybe I do. But that's why I'm asking. So if you just got through sitting for 40 minutes, you get to ask yourself, how did I do? And it's not about the answer, it's about what did I just use to arrive? And now I can see it because it was steering me. And now it's not steering you. Now you're the one who notices it. Isn't that cool? Okay. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about, for those of you who have the program in front of you, the quote that I'm going to talk about today is from Zen Mind Beginner's Mind. Waves are the practice of the water. Waves are the practice of the water. This is something I've talked about before. This line fascinates me. And so I'm just going to riff a little bit on that today and see what shows up for me and share it with you. And you can see what shows up for you. So we'll play in the sandbox today. So where I want to start is talking just a little bit about kind of how meditation practice tends to start and where it tends to go for most of us, just as general patterns. So this is broad brush stuff. I'm doing that because we have a lot of folks attending online today, and there's a lot of folks in the room who are newer to practice. There's a lot of us who've been doing this for a while too. But it's kind of helpful to pull back all the way and sort of say, let's start at the very beginning with some of our preconceived notions about practice, and then we'll move into something a little bit deeper. But at the beginning of practice, for most of us, meditation practice or Zen practice in particular, we tend to associate not only the practice of sitting, zazen or meditation, with places like this, but we tend to come to places like this in order to do it, which is cool. That's why MZMC exists. Right? All of us know you can meditate just fine on your own, so it's kind of like, why would you have a special building that costs a fortune, especially on days like today, right? In order to drive across town to stare at a different wall than the wall I have at home. Sort of stupid, right? This is not a magic wall. These are not magic walls. This floor is just as boring as mine. And yet we come across town and we do go to a place that has been decorated, that has an aesthetic, it's been cared for in a certain way. It has symbolic objects in it. I'm sitting right in the way of some of them. It has been curated with great intention, this space, to lend itself as easily as possible for all of us to facilitate the thing we call. It's awesome. My